Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hi, my name's Alex Baker, and I go by Michigan Bricks on YouTube and Instagram, and this is the Battle of Zaadja. So this is based on a 2003 comic from the Dark Horse comic line for Star Wars. This has kind of like the start for a lot of the episodes of the Clone Wars, like landing on Point Rain. Tie-ins like the main Jedi who sacrifices herself in this battle. Her name is Commander Tono, very close to Ahsoka Tano. But the main objective is the clones are landing to basically siege this droid manufacturing factory. And so they're trying to sneak in, and they scope out from the mountains ranges and basically find out that they're going to send one of the Jedi in to sneak in and try to blow the whole thing up by taking out the core structure. And so they end up having the Padawan go in while they have all the Jedi waiting basically for something to blow up so they can kind of go and finish everything off. So the Jedi sneaks in through the cave right here. And this used to be a Mandalorian protector's cave. So they're in the comic that shows there's a bunch of Mandalorians all dead as she's walking in. And basically she's trying to sneak in, and then a bunch of Geonosians catch her, and she has to ignite her lightsaber and fight herself off. And then she's trying to place detonators as she goes along, and then eventually gets pinned down where she can't get out. So she contacts Anakin and Obi-Wan and basically says she's not going to come out, and sacrifices herself and blows up the entire spire and basically takes out all the droids in the process, and a full success.
Fantastic story there and a great layout. So it's cool to see something with a lot of snow that's like a different Star Wars battle. It's not Hoth like we've seen a lot of times.
Exactly. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this looks like Hoth." I was like, "It's actually kind of not Hoth." Technically, the comic is mostly snow, but the first page has a lot of like sand green kind of like streaks through the artwork. So I thought I was going to throw in some like sand green little clips for like little grass poking through the snow, just to make it a little bit more detailed. Obviously, it might not be 100% accurate, but kind of adds it on and makes it look like, Hoth doesn't have grass, so maybe ties it away a little bit.
So at this end, with the army down here, take us through some of the vehicles and the soldiers you have represented here.
All right, so the vehicles, specifically the ATTEs, those are done by Brickworld. I'm not very good at building vehicles. Landscapes where my strong suit is. So those are those. The gunships are M5 builds. He's also with our Empire Lug. And I can't remember who did the little starfighter. If he knows who he is, he knows who he is. A phenomenal job back there. Super small and very detailed. There's probably close to 70-something clones. And then there's one captain from that new clone pack. And then you got Obi-Wan and Anakin over there. Yep.
And are those customs, or you have custom accessories in there?
Just the accessories. A good chunk of those are various companies for weapons. There's so many different ones out there. Clone Army Customs, Brick Arms, Brick Tactical. So many. Whenever I get a good deal on them, I just buy a bunch of them, and just eventually I'll have enough for all the clones.
And as we move across the battlefield, what do we have here in the opposing force?
So we got droids. Technically in the comic, they're supposed to be MTTs, but I couldn't fit it in here with a rational size. So I just did the two AATs. And this is the only one of the other, there's very few battles where the tan ones were used. Collar, which I did a few years ago, has those. Obviously Naboo is one of the most famous ones for it, but this one as well uses the tan ones. There's probably close to 200 battle droids here as well.
And that brings us to certainly kind of the most eye-catching part of this layout, which is the massive tower here. So you've got some interesting techniques. Tell us about kind of how the construction of this came together.
So this was extremely challenging. So I started with this section actually 2 weeks before Brickworld last year, because I knew it was going to be challenging, and I kind of bounced around. So much complicated angles, because it's not only sliding sideways, it's also sloping up. And somehow transporting this, I only had one panel fall off, and I drove 3 hours in a car with it, and potholes everywhere, and somehow it did not shatter, and I'm completely amazed.
How did these different panels come together? What pieces did you use there?
So my favorite piece used out throughout this whole build in white and in light gray are the 1x2 plates and 1x2 tiles. And I just basically stagger them and put a couple ingot tiles as well to just give the more rock look that the comic kind of shows. But yeah, the structure was kind of hard. I knew I wanted to have an interior because there's parts of this that has little lanterns where Commander Tono walks in and basically fights all these Geonosians. So I was like, I got to build this strong enough that you can support the build at the same time as holding a interior, which those who do interiors, they know that's an extreme challenge. So I had a lot of fun trying to incorporate that and have lights working and everything. It's a lot of extra work, that's for sure, but definitely rewarding.
I like the neat sort of architectural elements in that central tower there. So you got a variety of types of pieces there.
So in the comic actually looks super accurate to that, and somehow just the parts that I had and the techniques that I wanted to use for a very light but strong support for the main spire, it just ended up working out perfectly.
And then the spire on top also has just a unique selection of parts there, lots of stuff stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, so I ran out of so obviously the curved plating eventually got so tight that I couldn't really do it anymore to make it efficient, so I had to switch to a technique of using snot bricks sideways with the slopes all the way up to a final point.
So with the whole layout here, when you bring this to the show, what was your setup process like?
So it was actually super simple. The hardest part was just the spire section. That was all one kind of plate. Something I learned last year was saran wrap and either wood table underneath it or just a tabletop itself makes transporting 1,000 times easier. It was the easy or the hard part, but the easy part was mostly the chunks. These all come apart. They're just the 48 by 48 base plates, so I can just throw those in a bin. Some of the clips will fall off, but it leaves a little hole. I know where the missing ones would go.
And you've got lighting throughout the tower and on some of the vehicles and everything over there as well. So what types of lighting do you find works well for your builds?
Honestly, so last year was my first year experimenting with lights, and I got hooked right away. Lights, it changes the build, and here at Brickworld, they do the Night of Lights where they turn all the lights off and all the Lego lights just shine. It's so cool, so I was like, I got to do lights. So brick stuff, Brick Loot, I think, had some. There's a handful of different companies that do really nice ones. They got some new lightsabers this year that are so bright that it ended up illuminating that whole cave so well.
And you can see the comic book you have set up there. It's kind of some of the inspiration for the build.
Yep.
So when you're doing a build like this, where all do you look for inspiration from? Are you trying to pull that from lots of different sources?
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of like name brands. So like when something I see in a movie, like the big battles, like basically the ones that everybody tries to build, I try to stay away from those, let them do their respective builds. Usually half the time they're so well that it's not even worth trying to go back and redoing, because I would just fail miserably. So I usually try to find the very small niche kind of builds, stuff from comics or from a show. I'm usually pretty fast at building, so like I built Collar before, one of the first people to build it, so I was able to get it out fast. Other than that, the stuff that's super small that no one ever really touches, like if you were to get to Google the Battle of Zaadja, the only thing you're ever going to find is the wiki for that comic, and that's it. And I was like, this is perfect. I have all the freedom I have. There's no like competition. I can kind of set my own playing board.
There you go. You like to go into the deep cuts.
Yes, the deep cuts, all the stuff that no one else has any idea what it is.
Well, this is great work. Thank you so much for your effort building this and bringing it out to the show here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.